listening to Race Day Live on Downforce UK, brought to you by Clapham North MOT, Motorsport Days Live, Stopwatch Hospitality, and Trade Price Cars.
A very good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Karting de Fagnes International Raceway here in Mariembourg in Belgium, the second round of the 2018 IAME X30 European Karting Series. It's been an amazing start to the season 8 weeks ago at Salbris in France, and here we are in Mariembourg for an absolutely fantastic weekend's motor racing for the X30 European Championships in the Mini, Junior, Senior and Super Shifter classes. Jake Sanson here on the start-finish line in my commentary box position, overlooking the checkered flag post, which is about to fly for the warm-up session that is currently going on out on track. We've had 2 days of high-intense testing and yesterday evening's qualifying session for 3 of the categories in X30 Mini, X30 Junior and X30 Senior. It's been a really X30 Super Shifter, I should say. Really exciting sessions they were yesterday as well, particularly in the X30 Super Shifter category, where we had 2 drivers, Sten-Dorian Pidemargi of Estonia and Kevin Luddy of Switzerland, who were tied for the pole position time down to the thousandth of a second. They both got a 53.787 lap. The pole position going to Sten-Dorian Pidemargi for his 2 purple sectors compared to Kevin Luddy's 1. Either that or the reason for it is whoever was quickest through the majority of the day. But either way, they've given it to Pidemargi, but a dead heat in qualifying is very exciting indeed in Super Shifters and proof that there is an incredible competition in this particular category, which is out on circuit at the moment, just doing its warm-up session. It doesn't actually count to any of the live sessions, but there are 3 heats for the X30 Super Shifters later on today of 15 kilometres, 11 laps in total. And it will be Sten-Dorian Pidemargi and Kevin Luddy that line up on the front row of that grid, from Casper Corjus of Estonia and the British racer Barry Pullinger. Then it is Nico Rohrwasser and Carlos Leon, the Swiss and the Spaniard. And then we have the local man Thierry Delray in 7th on the grid from Philippe Siva, with Michel Biffiger and Doriano Marchucci rounding out the top 10 from Lionel Chalet and the Portuguese racer João Dias. And just to give you an idea, in the warm-up session, Sten-Dorian Pidemargi is clearly in fine form. He's set the fastest lap in the warm-up by 0.4 of a second. So he's definitely putting in a fast run. My apologies, it's 0.2 of a second because the previous lap for Nico Rohrwasser was not his best. But he has done a good lap time there. We've got a kart actually stranded on the far side of the circuit for one of the competitors. I'm assuming that is Michel Biffiger, who's had a breakdown there on the far side of the circuit because he's only done 3 laps of the warm-up, whereas everybody else has done 5 or 6. So while that is cleared up, there's time to tell you about some of the other bits and pieces of information from yesterday's X30 Mini qualifying session. We knew it was going to be very close, and we were definitely not disappointed in yesterday's qualifying practice. It was a fantastic run for the X30 Mini local man Kimi Abraham, who did an absolutely terrific job in yesterday's qualifying practice with a fastest time of 62.581. He grabbed pole position for each of the 3 heats today in front of the Spaniard Sergio Ruiz. Then we have Nathan Ottink in the PDB racing kart for the Netherlands in 3rd place, alongside Miguel Pedro-Rozoraga, who won the IAME Winter Cup in his home country in Spain back in February. Ruben Volt, the Estonian for Dan Holland Racing, he's in 5th position on the grid, along with the other Spaniard in the mix, Lucas Fluschercross. He is there in 6th on the grid. Patrice Kovalevski for the karting club Francorchamps is there in 7th position, with the privateer Gabriel Bektas, who is there in 8th position on the grid. Then we have the Filipino racer William Go. He's going to be lining up 9th position for the Piers Sexton Racing Team. And then Amaury Mertens, the other Belgian for the MGR Racing Squad, will line up in 10th position. Then we have Alejandro Melendez Pardi, who won last time out at Salbris, of course. He's there in 11th, having a very difficult time of things at the moment. But he is there alongside the other Spaniard who did such a good job in the first 2 weekends of the IAME European campaign, the Championship round at Salbris and the Winter Cup in Valencia back in February. Bogdan Ionodbria, the Spanish driver who is there in 12th position on the grid. Angelo Melli is starting the races, but unfortunately all 3 of them he'll start from 13th on the grid after his times were disallowed due to a technical infringement. But he's got plenty of time to make up, and his local knowledge of the Karting de Fagnes International Raceway will definitely help him over the course of the day. We obviously want to talk a little bit about the X30 Juniors as well. Well, there's going to be a really exciting campaign from the X30 Juniors this time. The fastest of all in qualifying yesterday was the British racer based out in Spain. Maximus Maya went fastest with a time of 56.069. Rimo Kadapik, the Estonian who'd been fastest for most of the day, ended up second in qualifying from the Scotsman who leads the championship. Lewis Gilbert, the man from Dalry for the KR Sport team, he was third fastest. From the Belgian with local knowledge for Dan Holland Racing, Luca Leistra. A lot of people coming into this weekend are tipping him to win this one because he knows the circuit very well. He's consistent, he's solid, he's smooth, so it could be a really interesting challenge for him. Josh Ratican was the fifth fastest for the Coles Racing team. Noah Maton in sixth for RSD Karting. Josh Rowledge for the Strawberry Racing team in 7th. Dan Holland Racing's Alex Lloyd was 8th, and rounding out the top 10 from qualifying was Ollie Pilker for the Unique Racing team and Zach Ripley for Evolution. That was your top 10. 11th position in qualifying, Marty Boyer, who a lot of people are still saying, no, I think he can win this one. Even from 11th position in qualifying, he's going to find it tough, but he has what it takes to get there. We've already seen him finishing runner-up in both the pre-final and final at Salbris and winner of the Valencia Winter Cup. In 12th position on the grid, the Polish racer Jerzy Spinkovic for the Unique Racing team. He is going to be a strong one and a great contender this weekend as well. Daniel Gregor, the German racer for Team Zinner, was 13th quickest alongside his countryman Herodin Narodini, the man who was born in Albania and races under a German license, of course. Then we have Enzo Juliet, the Frenchman in the CBK kart from Sam Balota, the Euro karting star. And then we have BMR's lead driver in this class, Tom Leben, 17th position. And then we have the Fusion Motorsport driver, Josh McLean, from his teammate, the Dutchman Delano van 't Hoff. And then in 20th in qualifying was Victor Pardo. Then we have the HTP kart team driver, Linus Janssen, the German. He was 21st fastest in front of the Fusion Motorsport star from Glasgow in Scotland, Cian Shields, the Flying Scotsman, as we've come to know him in the IAME Euro Series paddock. Lois Delbart for the Kart Republic Belgique squad was 23rd in qualifying, following Alessandro Tudisca in the TYS Racing kart, another of the locals, of course. The next one in is a new driver to the championship and a local man as well, Laurens de Querta for the Raved Racing team. Jason Leung, the Canadian, was in 26th place for the PDB squad. Then we have Herbert Moore, the Spaniard for FA Racing, Tom Uzan, the Frenchman for VDK Racing, Liam McNeely, the Brit for Evolution, and Ken Oscar Algra for the Ix Racing team. Then we had Ronan Hackler. Ronan is there for the Dan Holland Racing team in 31st position. Eric Alanis Bosch for Spain for the FA Racing team was 32nd. From Aaron Reshepi, the Swiss, in the Spirit Racing kart. Zach Meakin, the Brit for Went Valley Motorsports. I spent my track walk walking around with him this morning. He was there in 34th position with a 57 dead. William Nicolot, the Matek competition racer for France, is there in 35th ahead of Alex Ivanov, the Ix Racing team driver from Estonia. And then after struggling in qualifying, Alicia Barrett in the Fusion Motorsport kart will take up her position in the tail end of the field, and that will put her in the back row for each of her heats. But she's one of those drivers who can fight back in racecraft and is really, really good in terms of her overtaking prowess, so it's definitely not game over by any stretch of the imagination. The X30 Minis are currently in the middle of their warm-up session, and that is the last warm-up before we go into the Senior X30 qualifying session. Now, that's the only reason we haven't talked about the starting grid for Senior X30. Just looking out my window as Martin Bean gets himself a very nice X marks the spot on the back of his bonce there. Good to see. It's been a very playful atmosphere in the paddock here this weekend. We had a fantastic Pint in the Paddock video shoot yesterday with myself and 5 of the team personnel. We had various people from the paddock. We had the P1 Racing representatives, Nicolas and Ton from there. We also had Ollie from the Evolution team. She gave us some great quality. Also from PDB Racing, we had Nick De Bruyn, and of course from Piers Sexton Racing, Piers Sexton himself. That is hopefully going to be online very shortly via either Telemundi Media or the IAME European Series Facebook page. So do keep an eye on that. It's a really good and very good, light-hearted conversation. We do like to keep things very pally in the European Series, and it means that we've got some great camaraderie and some great rivalries over the course of the championship, but also a lot of friendship, which is really good, and a very nice and open paddock for each of the teams. Now, one of the big talking points for this weekend, particularly in the junior and senior categories, although the X30 Mini is out at the moment, but one of the big talking points since Thursday morning has been the brand new Nassau panels that were brought in for this season, and they've been developed obviously by OTK. They're basically shaped very similar to a baguette on the front of it, in the fact that you've got 2 lips either side of the kart. on the main panel, and then there is a groove in the middle which the number board goes over the top of at the height of the Nassau panel, and it channels air through the middle of the kart. Now, I've been talking to several different drivers and teams about this. Some drivers say that this is a really good boon. It helps unsettle understeer, and it gives you a good balance when you're racing in the pack, and it can give you up to anywhere between 1 to 2/10 of a second per lap. There are other drivers and teams out there who say it doesn't make a blind bit of difference. They don't like the look of it, they don't like the feel of it, and they really don't know what the point of it is. But it's very interesting to see some teams have done it and other teams haven't. And interestingly as well, it looks as though there are some teams out there who have done it purely to get a psychological advantage on the rest of the teams. So there are teams that are trying it, and other teams have brought them just to play the mind games, as it were. So there are teams basically using it because other teams are using it, and there are even some squads up and down the paddock that are letting their drivers choose whether they want to use it or not. And there are some drivers who have said, yes, I will, and others who have said they've not. But I would not at all be surprised if coming into Saturday's first qualifying heats, we are going to see a few drivers that were using the Nassau panels, the new ones anyway, on Thursday and Friday, who will probably not be using them for the races. But it is interesting. It's a nice bit of science, an interesting piece of kit, and what's quickly being known as the Baguette Nassau panel is possibly going to be used by several drivers over the course of the weekend. Now, of course, we're going to be going live on Telemundi Media very shortly in time for the first of the qualifying heats, which will be happening here trackside at, let me just get my timetable in front of me. That will be 11:40 local time, and that's going to be a really interesting battle when we go live. So that will be when the grid gate opens and closes. So we're pretty much going to be going live. The first race itself will start 12 o'clock local time, which of course is 11 o'clock for all those listening via Downforce UK back in the Great Britain, or wherever it is around the world you happen to be tuning in from. But it gives us a really exciting battle for the Senior X30 qualifying session. The checkered flag has now gone out on the X30 Minis warm-up. So this is now the point when I start talking about the Senior X30 battle from yesterday's practice. Now, they've had 4 practice sessions for each driver in Senior X30 rather than the regular 3, and that is to accommodate for the handful of drivers who actually had exams yesterday in their academic achievements. Some of them had to stay back in their home countries, be it in England or Spain or France or wherever. They had to stay home because they had exams to do. Obviously, these drivers at Senior X30 level, some of them are age 14, 15, 16. Some of them are doing GCSEs or the equivalent of A-levels, depending on what it is that they're doing. So they had examinations that they couldn't miss yesterday. So a lot of them have basically come out of the exam room and got straight in their motorhome, straight on the plane and flown out here. So a lot of them missed practice yesterday. There was about a half dozen or so drivers who didn't actually attend yesterday, but the RGMMC, organising the IAME X30 European Series, said, fair enough, your academic achievements come first. We'll organise a separate practice session, which they did this morning for the Senior X30. So they've had 4 practice sessions compared to the other categories who have had 3. But it gives us a really interesting spread of drivers to talk about because they've all had varying different conditions to do their practice sessions. So this is how those 4 practice sessions tally up when you take all of those times into consideration, because the time qualifying for the seniors is not going to be happening for another 20 minutes or so. So we'll give you a rundown as to all of the drivers who have now set practice times and what sort of pace we're going to be seeing from them. The fastest of all in Senior X30 across the 4 sessions is the man who was a very, very top challenger at Salbris, and definitely local knowledge coming into play here for possibly the youngest member of the field, I think it is. Eli Goldstein, the Belgian ace, is there in a very impressive first position. Just 14 years of age, Eli Goldstein, and really, really impressive to see him there at the top of the table. The only person over the course of the 4 sessions to duck under 56 seconds for a practice lap. He did a 55.834, so clearly he knows this place incredibly well and was able to put in a really strong performance. Jordan Brown-Nutley was the second fastest of all with a 56.014. Milan Petelet, the Frenchman, was third with a 56.048 in front of Joey van Splunteren, who did a 56.073. All of those drivers separated by less than a tenth of a second. Then we have Henke Waldschmidt, who, of course, is a very talented racer who competed in everything from the Formula Renault 2-litre Euro Cup, Formula 3 European Series. He was the Italian and French ICA champion back in 2004. And, of course, Henke Waldschmidt was a competitor who used to be the Toyota Formula 1 test driver at one point. He certainly had some testing runs with Formula 1's Toyota team back in the latter part of 2008 and 2009. Then we have Joe Turney. He did a 56.119. He was second in the Super 1 Senior Championship last year back in Great Britain, and here in the European leagues he's doing an absolutely fantastic job. The Finn, Levi Luntekanto, was pretty strong yesterday. Did a 56.145. The Australian, Sean Butcher, he did a 56.151. Morgan Porter, who's just come off the back of winning in the National Championships back in the UK at Lark Hall in Scotland. Morgan Porter came through and won another great fillet there with another 56.1 second lap, so it's 56.160 to put him inside the top 10, just 7 thousandths of a second quicker than another fellow British racer, Angus Moulsdale, who of course was a national champion last year. Vincent Marceau did a 56.185, a thousandth of a second quicker than the reigning world champion Danny Curl, who was 12th fastest. Really struggled yesterday to get that ultimate pace, but still only 0.3 of a second off the best of Eli Goldstein. Then we have Camille Proteau, the Frenchman, who didn't do all of the sessions yesterday, but he did do them very quickly when he did. 56.210. He was the runner-up, of course, in the French National Championship last year. Then we have the Jordanian. Ali Akabi was very strong yesterday. Did a 56.229. So it's great to see Ali Akabi pushing on in the European Championships and already right up at the sharp end. Then we have the Belgian, Noah Rouvers, obviously local knowledge again playing into his favour. 56.240 he did yesterday from Ben Fayers, who did a 56.243, a thousandth of a second quicker than the Spaniard Ruben Moya, who was third in the Junior Championship in Spain last season. Then we have Rens van Pelt, who was the Benelux Minimax champion 4 years ago, my apologies, did a 56.249 in his practice sessions. Louis Westover's best time was a 56.251, the young Brit from Colchester in Essex. He is there in the top 20, as is the Belgian Nicolas Bayart, who did a 56.281. It's so close, and that's in the entirety of the top 20, covered by 0.4 of a second. You sneeze in the wrong direction in this category, you're starting a few rows further back than you thought you would. Then we have Nicolas Bayart, obviously we mentioned him. Masatora Wada, the Japanese driver, is there in 56.312. Then we have Philip Vava, the Spaniard, who did a 56.322, so just a hundredth of a second slower. Simon Henrard was 7 thousandths of a second off that, and then Siem Liedmar, 3 thousandths of a second behind, and set the exact same time to the thousandth of a second to the Belgian Felix Varge, who did a brilliant race performance there. The German making his debut in the European Championship, Jan-Philipp Springob for the HTP kart team. He did a 56.351. He's the reigning German X30 champion, of course. Then we have the Swiss lady, Lena Bühler, who's going much faster this weekend than she's done in the first part of the season. This is where she's really going to come into her own, I think. And Lena Bühler did a 56.364. Really good to see her within half a second of the fastest time after all sorts of mechanical problems have kept her away from the top spot. She's changed teams for this weekend as well, Lena Bühler. She's now in with the... I believe she's now in with the Evolution team. I do apologise if I've got that incorrect, but I certainly saw her in different overalls to the ones that she had started in over the course of the season, so I will double check that and get back to you on it. Of course, this is the early part of the season, and I am still making a couple of mistakes right and centre. But no, I was right. It is the Evolution squad that she's in for the remainder of the season, I believe. So I think she'll do a much stronger job there, and she's certainly happy to have moved across. So Lena Bühler's time, 56.364, 3 thousandths of a second quicker than the Dutchman Niels Keulen, who was the SK USA Nationals X30 Junior Champion 2016. And then we have Thomas Imburg, who was the runner-up in the French Nationals in 2015 with a 56.373, 0.02 of a second quicker than another local man, Xavier Hansheim, the Belgian who was there in the mix. Owen Byatt is 31st fastest, courtesy of the fact that he had exams to do and therefore finds himself a little further down the order, but his best time this morning was a 56.378. Sebastien Degrand did a 56.403. Nicolas Picot, the Frenchman, did a 56.422. Isaac Valtonen, the Swede, was only 1,000th of a second slower than that. Sylvester Alexievas, the Lithuanian, was 4,000ths of a second quicker. Slower, I should say, sorry. And then the IAME Winter Cup senior champion from 3 months ago, Clayton Ravenscroft. He only turned up about 7 o'clock last night in his motorhome, dashing over the ferry, and he did a 56.429 this morning. So the man who's still battling for the championship this year, still plenty of opportunities to make up the time. Then we have the Swiss racer Stefan Planchamp. He did a 56.440, and then next comes the man who won at Salbris 8 weeks ago, Mark Kimber, did a 56.452, but again, he had exams to do, so unfortunately couldn't make it here until first thing this morning. Then we have William Godefroy, the Belgian. He did a 56.462. Kevin Stahauer, the Dutchman, was 1,000th of a second slower than that. Tony Harainen, the Finn, did a 56.469. Robin Knutsen, the Swede, was on a 56.491. Yannick Gourvarts, the other Belgian, there's a 56.494, so only 0.03 of a second slower. The British driver Rufus Hunt was 0.05 of a second slower than that, the 14-year-old from Rugby, representing the Fusion Motorsport team. 0.07 of a second slower than him was the Irishman Ross Hayes. Then we have the BMR driver, who is a proper Lewis Hamilton fanboy. Thomas Fleming did a 56.519. Then we have the Thai driver, Thanapong Satumnu, who was obviously one of the top drivers in the Euro X30 Senior IAMEs back in 2017. He is the number 10 seed. 56.535 he set. The Swiss driver Danny Bunshu, he did a 56.549, so not a bad run from him, although he would have liked to have gone a bit faster. Harry Platten, the Brit, who was the runner-up in the X30 Junior category back in 2015, back in his home country of Britain, he did a 56.564 across the 4 practice sessions for his best time. The Mexican Rafael Villagomez did a 56.601. Martin Ebet, the Belgian's best has been a 56.620. Gustav Brandin, the Swede, has done a 56.625, exactly the same time to the 1,000th of a second to the Dutchman Rivaldo van der Westerleken. Then we have a 56.630 for the Frenchman Enzo Giraud. The Spaniard Carlos Saval has done a 56.645. The British driver Leonardo Paniautu has done a 56.667, I should say, who was competing, of course, in his home country back in 2015, but has been pretty much heavily based in Europe for the last couple of seasons. Then we have the Lebanese driver Rashid Ghanem, did a 56.680. Juan Carlos Hernandez Ruiz, who has been the 3 times champion of Madrid back in Spain, he did a 56.705. Eduardo Cosateng, the Filipino, did a 56.737. Kylian Belair, the Frenchman, he did a 56.741. He, of course, is the son of a rally driver and is using his karting expeditions to get himself further up into the ranks of rallying. Also competes in a lot of junior rallying on the amateur leagues back home in his home country of France. Then we have Henke Kelteren, the Dutchman, did a 56.764. Really good mates with Dilano Van Toff, those two. Then we have Romain Larue, the Frenchman, who's dual nationality. He's also Singapore-based, of course, did a 56.771. Then we have Tom Nellison, the Belgian, who is a 2 times Belgian champion, and he did a 56.780, 0.02 of a second quicker than his countryman Anthony Munin, who only did this morning's practice session. So we still don't really know the ultimate pace we're going to see from Anthony Munin. Evan Becerra, another one of the Belgians here on home soil, did a 56.831. The Spaniard Manel Godofretorne did a 56.872 across the practice sessions. He only managed to get 1 practice session in the Polish driver Kamil Donic, but he did a 56.892, so at least he's within the 56-second barrier. Then we have the British driver Harry Barlow for Thule Motorsport, who is a double Birol Art Cadet champion. back in the United Kingdom, and he was the junior runner-up in the 2017 season. He did a 56.894, so again within the ultimate time of pole position within that second. Also, we have Jack Tomlin, the Brit, who really struggled across the practice sessions, did a 56.965. The Dutchman, Liam Hezemans, he is, of course, a very famous family part of. He is the grandson of Twan and the son of Mike Hezemans, the GT star. He did a 56.974. He had some really big problems in terms of his practice runs, so he was not able to get on the pace. And the only two drivers registered who did not set times were the Belgian Fabio Kjeltke and the Pole Max Pilker. So hopefully they will come out in time for the qualifying session. If not, then we will have 70 drivers in the Senior X30 category for the remainder of this weekend. And that is a very big grid, although if you think it took me a long time to go through the drivers in this particular weekend, well, you needed to go back to Salisbury a few weeks ago where we had 90 of them. We had several other drivers in the mix, such as Abdi Nagy, Hans Morin, Vincent Cavaliers, Corentin Pelletier, Matilda Olsson, the Swede, who sadly is not here. She did a great job in Salisbury's and unfortunately has not been able to make it this time. Arnold Milizia, Boris Jung, Kike Bodas-Kotes, the Norwegian Simon Lilholm, Toisko Avascu, the Finn, Valtteri Valkijärvi, his countryman, the Swede Patrick Rundqvist, Jacob Ang and Saul Robinson, the Brits, Etienne Shelley, the Frenchman, the American driver, Reese Ushijima, who is dual nationality, American and Japanese, Luki Trevs, the German, Pierre-François Duriani, the Swede, Jodep Tush, the Frenchman, and the Filipino driver, Tai Alexander Zulberti. We're missing quite a few drivers from the Senior X30 campaign who was there at Salisbury's. So it's a shame we don't get to see them, but there is plenty of great racing action to come from the Senior X30s as we are shortly to be getting underway for the Senior X30 qualifying sessions, and they are going to be really, really exciting to talk about.
Hi, I'm Tom Ingram and you're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Jacques Villeneuve, you're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Bruno Senna, you're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Chris Hoy and you're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Landon Norris and you're listening to Downforce Radio.
You're listening to Race Day Live on Downforce UK, brought to you by Clapham North MOT, Motorsport Days Live, Stopwatch Hospitality and Trade Price Cars.
A few minutes to go then here at Mariembourg for the second round of the 2018 IAME X30 European Series for the X30 Minis, Juniors, Seniors and Super Shifters. It's been an amazing start to the season at Salisbury's 8 weeks ago with 4 very different winners. Alejandro Melendez in the X30 Mini category taking the win. In the Juniors it was the man from Dalry in Scotland, Lewis Gilbert, who also leads the championship by 4 points. In the Senior X30 it was Mark Kimber, the man absolutely determined to drown me in champagne on every single podium he steps on. And also the X30 Super Shifters, the Estonian Stendorian Pidemargi. We have our first 4 winners from the 2018 season, but we are hoping to find a few more. It's going to be a really interesting weekend, and it's very, very open and even in each of the classes, with the first pole positions going to the various drivers in the qualifying sessions. To Kimi Abraham in the X30 Minis. In the Super Shifters, Stendorian Pidemargi, although he was tied to the 1,000th of a second with Kevin Luddy. The pole position going to Pidemargi based on his performance over the course of the day's practice. And the X30 Junior pole position going to Maximus Maya, the British driver who is based out in Spain at San Migueles de Salinas. So it's going to be an interesting battle to find out who's going to be on pole position for the Senior X30 category. 70 drivers competing across 3 qualifying groups. So let's talk you through the participants for that first group. Fastest of all in practice, we've already spoken about, and we have mentioned that is going to go... that has already, gone the way in the qualifying practice sessions to the man on top form, Eli Goldstein, the Belgian local. He has done an absolutely fantastic job and put himself into that position. He's done a 55.834 across the practice sessions ahead of Jordan Brown-Nutley, Milan Petele, Joey van Spunteren, Henky Waldschmidt and Joe Turney in the top 6. Very impressive from the practice sessions, but now we've got to find a pole position sitter across the 70 drivers in the 3 different qualifying groups. And interestingly, the man who won at Salisbury's, Mark Kimber, was not even here yesterday, nor was one of the other British stars in this category, Clayton Ravenscroft. They were busy doing their final exams. So basically, they have had to miss all of yesterday's practice. They come into this with just 1 practice session under their belt, and they've got to be right up on the pace straight away. The racing is going to be fast fast and frenetic, and almost certainly we are looking at the potential of a different winner in Senior X30 compared to Sal Briz. It's not guaranteed, though. If anyone's going to fight it back from outside the top 30, it's Mark Kimber, but there's a long, long, long way to go, so we're going to have to find out in earnest who is going to be right on the top of their game. There's plenty to find out, and there's plenty to talk about in the run-up to these fantastic races. So we're going to concentrate then on the Senior X30 qualifying sessions. There are 3 of them, because obviously we can't put 70 drivers out on one racetrack at the same time. That would be utter lunacy. So they've been separated into 3 groups of 24 based on the 72 entries that we had. Now, I'm not entirely sure if we're going to see the 2 drivers that have not yet set times across practice, the Belgian Fabio Kieltke and the Pole Max Pilker. I haven't seen them yet in the paddock, but that doesn't mean they're not here, but I haven't seen them as yet. There are, however, 70 drivers in the senior brigade, and they will be the ones who will come out and set their times. So we will figure out who is going to be on ultimate pole position, although you have to look at the top 10 from practice to look at your potentials. There are a few drivers hovering outside that, but the top 10 from practice, as we mentioned, Eli Goldstein, Jordan Brown-Nutley, Milan Petele, Joey van Spunteren, Henke Waldschmidt, Joe Turney, Levi Ntukantu, Sean Butcher, Morgan Porter and Angus Moulsdale. There are a few drivers outside that top 10 who could spring a nice surprise. Danny Curl, of course, the reigning world champion. Ali Akabi's been very strong. The Jordanian, the French talents of Vincent Marcereau and Camille Pretot should be very strong. The Belgian contingent with local knowledge should be good for Noah Rouvers, Rens van Pelt and Nicolas Bayart. Louis Westover has been very strong when the kart's been good underneath him, as has his countryman Ben Fayers. The Spaniard Ruben Moya could be an interesting factor. And then, of course, the 2 or 3 drivers who didn't run in practices yesterday, the likes of the Belgian Yannick Gouvarts and the Brits Mark Kimber and Clayton Ravenscroft. Plenty of talking points, and there's even a couple of drivers who have really kicked up a gear in terms of their own personal development. Masato Iwata, the Japanese, has been much stronger. Jan-Philipp Springhob in his debut for the championship is right up in the sharp end of the grid, and the Swiss lady Lena Bühler. All of them have really taken a developmental step forward and have been very strong. Another of the Brits who missed practice yesterday, Owen Byatt, is right up at the top end as well. So there's all sorts of drivers to discuss as potential pole sitters here in the Senior X30 category. It really is pretty spectacular stuff as we've got ourselves ready for the action. We're going to have some fantastic qualifying from the X30 seniors, and it's worth talking about the qualifying participants in each of the 3 groups. So we will motor on and we will talk about them in just a couple of moments' time. But we are getting ourselves ready in the glorious baking sunshine here at Mariembourg with barely a cloud in the sky. It's going to be absolutely amazing when we get underway. We've had some rain over the course of the last 2 days, only on the Thursday evening for the untimed practice sessions, but at least now a few of the drivers have got an idea as to what it will be like here when and if it rains. Hopefully it doesn't, and we will continue this beautiful sunshine. It is a wonderfully hot day. My sources tell me at the moment that the track temperature is in the region of 24 degrees Celsius. Now, if you take into account that most karting circuits will be about 4 to 5 degrees Celsius more than that, once the heat is obviously baked into the tarmac, then you're looking at a track temperature of about 27, 28 degrees Celsius, a push towards 29. So these fresh tyres that they'll put on for qualifying will definitely not last long. Obviously, this is one of those circuits that really does chew up the rubber. I was walking the circuit this morning, and as well as the odd snail or frog, it's a very, very interesting surface. There's all sorts of marbles on the outside, and a really, really exciting challenge from the drivers ahead of them, because they're really going to have to be pushing themselves to the absolute limit of their abilities. It's a real test of their powers, this place. So they're going to have to work very hard. It's a very different type of circuit to Sal Briz 8 weeks ago, which was very, very fast straights, long sweeping apexes. Here, it's tight, it's twisty, it's technical. And a lot of the drivers really relish the challenge of this because that breeds more overtaking opportunities. It makes more ferocious battles in the concertina effect, but you get a lot of great racing as a result of that. And we're really looking forward to when we go live on the Telemundi Media live stream via YouTube, which is going to be about 12 o'clock local time. So it's about 11 o'clock for all those in Great Britain and 12 o'clock wherever you are around the rest of Europe. So that's going to be really interesting. We're live over the course of the day trackside here at the Karting de Fagnes International Raceway, but also on Downforce UK, the motorsport radio stream. If you have a smartphone, you can download it to your phone on the application called Spreaker, and you can listen to live commentary as it happens and listen back to everything that's already been discussed when it has gone off the air. So it's going to be an interesting one for Senior X30. Let's talk you through the qualifying participants in each of the categories. So in each of the groups, I should say, the Practice Series 1 QPS 1 participants are 24 drivers, and they are the Belgian Yannick Goulvaerts, the Swiss Enzo Giroud, the British driver Owen Byatt, the Swedish racer Robin Knutsen, the Brit Louis Westover, Estonia's Sim Liedmar, Belgium's Sebastien Degrand, the Dutchman Rivaldo van der Westerlaken, Romain Leroux of France, Clayton Ravenscroft of Great Britain, Harry Platten likewise from Great Britain, Noah Rouvers of Belgium, the Irishman Ross Hayes, the Dutchman Henke Waldschmidt, the Frenchman Camille Pruteau, Danny Bunschu of Switzerland, the Mexican Rafael Villagomez, Niels Koelen of Holland, Felix Varga, Fabio Kieltika, Liam Hezemans and Rens van Pelt, all from Belgium, Eduardo Cosseteng of the Philippines, and Manuel Galofretone of Spain. Those are the 24 drivers that will come out in the first group for the X30 Seniors. It's going to be a really interesting battle when they come out onto the circuit, which is going to be in a little under a minute's time. And we will really get to see an interesting run in the practice from the practice session into qualifying to see which of these drivers is going to be right up at the sharp end. Just looking for drivers from this group that are right up at the sharp end of the field. Well, of course, one of those is going to be... now I've got a different list of drivers in front of me on the timing screen, so apologies for that. I'll now give you the correct list of participants in this one, and they are Joey van Splunteren, the Dutchman, Enzo Giroud, the Swiss driver, Robin Knutsen of Sweden. We'll also have... I have the list in front of me now. Thank you very much. That's Yannick Goulvaerts, Enzo Giroud, Owen Byatt, and Robin Knutsen. Louis Westover, Sim Liedmar, Sebastien Degrand, Rivaldo van der Westerlaken, Romain Leroux of France, Clayton Ravenscroft, and Harry Platten of Great Britain, Noah Rouvers of Belgium, the Irishman Ross Hayes, Henke Waldschmidt, the Dutchman, Camille Pruteau of France, Danny Bunschu of Switzerland, Rafael Villagomez of Mexico, Niels Koelen of the Netherlands, Felix Varga, Fabio Kieltika, Liam Hezemans and Rens van Pelt of Belgium, Eduardo Cosseteng of the Philippines, and Manuel Galofretone of Spain. And they head out onto the circuit now for their qualifying session. So this is going to be an interesting one, and they know it, because we're going to have a very exciting battle in front of us. But it's going to take a long time for this session to develop. We're going to have a really, really exciting battle ahead of us. And as a result of what we're going to see, it will determine who is going to be in prime position over the course of the weekend. We're going to have a really interesting battle ahead of us. There are 33 races in total, of course, across this weekend. But we're going to have some very exciting battles from this qualifying session, because a lot of the drivers will obviously be still learning the circuit, because a few of them were not able to attend in the earlier practice sessions. So it's been a really interesting start to the weekend for them, and they're going to have to work very hard to get up to the ultimate fastest times that they're looking for. So it will be very interesting to see how the drivers go out there on the circuit. The times are obviously starting in earnest. Fastest from practice, as we mentioned, was Eli Goldstein, the local driver. So let's see how things currently work out for him in the practice session. We're going to have to work very hard to see who's going to get up at the top end right from the start. The first flying laps come in. Evan Becerra leading the charge on a 58.620 from his countryman, Anthony Moonen. They were the first two drivers to come out onto the circuit anyway. So good to see them in fine form early on as they battle away for supremacy. There's an awful lot of drivers in this particular grid, of course, and there's 24 of them in this particular session. So that's going to make things particularly entertaining for drivers as they try to get themselves up to speed. Some really exciting battles in the offing as now Eli Goldstein comes up to the top. Philip Varva now goes fastest of all. So Philip Varva on a 58.510. So immediately the lap times are tumbling. The fastest lap of the weekend, of course, from Senior X30 has come from Eli Goldstein, who has a great opportunity to get himself up into the top end of the brigade. But is Eli Goldstein going to do enough here to get himself up to the top? As he did in the ultimate running of the practice sessions yesterday. So this will be an interesting one to see how it goes. And we will have some interesting battles from the drivers as the sessions progress. But Eli Goldstein, fastest in practice with a 55.834. What is he going to be able to achieve over the course of this practice session. We will find out very shortly because we are right in the midst of the battle. And the drivers are going to fight themselves out for supremacy as the session progresses. So the timing is coming down now as the drivers are now starting to find their feet and get their lap times up. Isaac Valton has just done a 58.429. Philip Vava in second position, just 0.026 off that from Goldstein via Gomez. Up to third now comes Ruben Moya. Masatora Wada's just got himself into the top 10, just in there behind Clayton Ravenscroft and Louis Westover. So a really good start to the qualifying session from their point of view. Rafael Villagomez looking fairly strong in the top 6, in there with Vincent Marceau, who's just gone fastest of all in the first sector. Goldstein's just gone fastest of all in the second sector. So already a really interesting and exciting start to the qualifying from the senior X30s. They will push very hard for a good qualifying run. But it's going to be really, really interesting as we get ourselves into the meat and bones of this qualifying practice session. 3 minutes and 23 on the timing screens left. So the drivers now starting to pump in some good times. Vincent Marceau goes second, fastest of all in the first and third sectors. So a really exciting start for him. Ravenscroft goes third, just in there from Philip Vava. Isaac Valtonen in fifth from Robin Knutson, from Louis Westover, Ruben Moya, Anzo Giroud and Rafael Villagomez. Now we've got a whole category of drivers coming through across the line, and they're right up to speed. Goldstein leading from Marceau, Moya, Ravenscroft, and then Masatora Wada's come back up into the top 5. The Japanese star really seems to like it here, and Ruben Moya, the Spaniard, up into third position. Clayton Ravenscroft's just gone fastest of all in the first sector though, so it looks as though he is definitely going to be threatening for a strong performance here today. He'll be working very, very hard to get this one made his own, but he's got a lot of time to make up. A big deficit, having missed all of the practices yesterday, so he's got to work very hard to catch up to the time he has lost. But he is going about that the right way at the moment, so not bad at all from his point of view. And Eli Goldstein in first position. Ravenscroft now second. So Ravenscroft goes up to second place. Vincent Marceau third from Vava. Moya, Wada, Valtonen, Westover, Knutson and Ben Fayers, the Brit, is now the top 10 from this group. Enzo Giroud, Milan Petele, Joey Van Splinteren and Niels Koenen move up into the top 10. Ruben Moya goes second fastest, the Spaniard, with a brilliant third sector. That was a 19.203 for the third sector. So that puts him right up into the sharp end. Goldstein, Moya, Ravenscroft, Marceau, Vava, Fayers, Simon Henrad's just come up into the top 10 from Masatora Wada, Isaac Valtonen and Joey Van Splinteren in the top 10. Niels Koenen, then Louis Westover, Knutson, Giroud, Hayes, Petele, Planchamp, Martin Hebet, Sim Liedmar, Tom Nellison, Rafael Villagomez, Danny Curl way down the order in 22nd at the moment, Anthony Moonin and Evan Becerra. So very close in the moment. Goldstein goes fastest of all. Does a 56.117, getting close to that 55-second margin again. But Eli Goldstein from Ruben Moya, Clayton Ravenscroft and Vincent Marceau, Philip Vava and Louis Westover. This is a big, big problem for Danny Curl right at the moment. He's got absolutely no pace at all in the qualifying sessions and looks like he's going to find himself starting towards the back of the field if he can't find a faster lap time. The reigning world champion down in 22nd in this particular qualifying group at the moment, and he really can't afford to be much slower down than that. So Simon Henrad makes himself into the top 10 there with a very strong time. We're into the last minute of this group of qualifying as the drivers continue to push forward. Eli Goldstein, Ruben Moya, Clayton Ravenscroft, Vincent Marceau, Philip Vava and Louis Westover in the top 6. Niels Koenen, Ben Fayers, Simon Henrad, Masatora Wada in the top 10. Then it's Isaac Valtonen and Stefan Planchamp. Let's just see how the drivers come through as Goldstein again puts a quick lap in. Not as fast as his best. He's only 0.06 of a second off his best, actually, on that lap. So the pace is consistent. Vincent Marceau comes up to third place in behind Ruben Moya, the Spaniard. Ravenscroft still fourth. Then it's Vava, Westover, Koenen, Fayers, Onrad, Wada, Valtonen, Planchamp, Van Splinteren, Knutson and Giroud. Ruben Moya improves but remains second. Up to the top 6 comes Sim Liedmar, the Estonian. Just pops in there behind Niels Koenen. So a very good run from him. Van Splinteren overtakes Simon Henrad and Masatora Wada to get back into the top 10 once again. Danny Curl does a much better job now. He's up into 19th place. That's a few places made up, but he could really do with a few more. But the checkered flag is due out on circuit now as we have run out of time in this qualifying group. So the next time these guys come across the line, it will be the last time in this qualifying session, and it will be the best chance they will have yet of getting to the flag. Eli Goldstein sets the fastest lap of the session on the very last lap. 56.053. Beat that, everybody else, as he comes across the line. Goldstein from Moya, Marceau and Ravenscroft, they remain in third and fourth. Varva's completed his times. No improvement from him. Westover will remain 8th at best, but there's a few more drivers coming across the line. Will we see a few more changes? Looks like Ruben Moya there in second position confirmed. Joey van Splunteren goes up to third. Good move there from the Dutchman, right up into the top 5 at the very end of the qualifying session. Joey van Splunteren goes third fastest on a 56.160. Really good job there. Marceau fourth from Ravenscroft and Coolen. Then it's Sim Liedmar, Philip Varva, Louis Westover and Ben Fayers in the top 10. And an improvement at the very end there as well for Danny Curl, who goes to 15th fastest. So improvements there. But in the end of the qualifying group there for Practice Series 1, it is Eli Goldstein who gets the fastest time with a 56.053, and a lot of the locals predicting that this man is going to get the job done. Ruben Moya from Joey van Splunteren, Vincent Marceau, Clayton Ravenscroft and Niels Coolen in the top 6, with Sim Liedmar, Philip Varva, Louis Westover and Ben Fayers rounding out the top 10. Then it's Simon Henrad, Masatora Wada, Isaac Valtonen, Stefan Planchamp, Danny Curl, Robin Knutson, Ross Hayes, Enzo Giroud, Milan Petelet, Martin Hebet, Tom Nellison, Rafael Villagomez, Anthony Moonen and Evan Bachera. That is the field, and it's 0.8 of a second from the back of the field to the front. So basically, if you haven't set a 56-second lap time in this qualifying session, you have a mechanical problem. It's that close in the mix here. Absolutely incredible to see the drivers so closely matched across. That's just one qualifying practice series group, and there's 2 more of those groups still to come. But really exciting stuff here, and obviously the swords drawn by Eli Goldstein as he sets a 56.053. That's not as fast as he did in practice yesterday, but that is the 4th fastest lap of the entire weekend, would you believe? So that is very, very impressive stuff there from Eli Goldstein, and a real indication of what he's going to try and do over the course of this weekend. Really exciting stuff from his point of view. He really wanted to get that done as soon as was humanly possible, and he is right there in the mix. Exciting stuff from Eli Goldstein. That's the time to beat then in the second qualifying group, 56.053. Really impressive stuff, and that's a very hard target to try and beat, and he's going to find it very, very tricky going into the sessions. So he's going to be there from the front of the grid at the moment, but there are 2 more groups to come out, and we will find out who is going to have the best possible chance of getting themselves up the order. But we will find out very shortly. But what an absolutely incredible run that was, and hopefully it's going to be even more exciting when the races get underway after noon today. But there is 2 more of those qualifying sessions to come, and we will talk about qualifying practice group 2 in just a moment.
Hi, I'm Tom Ingham and you're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Jacques Villeneuve. You're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Bruno Senna. You're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Chris Hoy, and you're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Landon Norris, and you're listening to Downforce Radio.
You're listening to Race Day Live on Downforce UK, brought to you by Clapham North MOT, Motorsport Days Live, Stopwatch Hospitality and Trade Price Cars.
The truly majestic Belgian sunshine here at Mariembourg is giving us a really entertaining day's action already. And we've just had one qualifying session from the Senior X30 Brigade Qualifying Series Practice 1. And now we're going to have Qualifying Practice Series 2 for the second group of drivers. The second group of drivers looks like this. It'll be Jordan Brown-Nutley from Great Britain, the Belgian Jana Gouvarts for the P1 Racing Team, Thanapongpang Satumnu, the Thai driver for Super Windforce Race Team, Morgan Porter, the Brit for M Sport, Angus Mulsdale for the Euro Karting Squad, it says here on my sheet. I'm fairly sure he's a Fusion Motorsport driver. Unique Racing's Camille Donich. Then we have Sebastian Degrand, the Belgian. Then Lena Buehler for Evolution. Rivaldo van der Westerlaken, the Dutchman for Dimes Racing. Rufus Hunt, the young Brit from Rugby in Great Britain. KR Sport. Joe Turney's man is in there now as well. William Godefroy, the Belgian for CG Racing. Jack Tomelin of the M Sport karting team. Noah Rouvers for P1 Racing, the Belgian. The Lebanese racer from the M Sport team, Rashid Ghanem. Unique Racing's Lithuanian star, Sylvester Alexievas. Koiser Racing's Kevin Stehauer. And then we have NPS driver Nicolas Picot, the CBK star Kilian Belair, both of them Frenchmen, of course. Danny Buncho for the Spirit Racing team from Switzerland. Fabio Keltica, hopefully he'll make his weekend debut for the RSD karting team the Belgian, along with his two countrymen, Liam Hezemans and Xavier Hansem. In fact, Liam Hezemans races under a Belgian license, but he's actually Dutch by birth. He's the grandson of Twan Hezemans and the son of Mike Hezemans, the FIA GT star. Then we have the last man in, and that is the last two men in, and that is Xavier Hansem, the Belgian for TYS Racing, and the KCM driver for France, Thomas Imburg. So that is your group for the second practice session, and right up at the top end of that are drivers who put in a spectacular show in the practice session, particularly Jordan Brown Nutley are right up there in the number 202. He was second of all over the entirety of the practice sessions yesterday and will want to be right up there as well. Another driver who was right up at the sharp end, Morgan Porter, was one of the top 10 fastest drivers across the entire category and now finds himself in there in position to battle once again. Jana Govaerts is going to be an interesting one to watch in this one because he's only done one practice session. That would be this morning's. So he's going to find it very tough to figure out how he's going to go. But as we've already mentioned, there is a long way to go. He's got to work very hard to put himself into a good position. So let's see how he goes. There's also going to be some challenge from Angus Mulsdale. He was right up in the top 10 as well for the overall ranking of the sessions. And I'm actually very interested to see how the likes of some of the Brits go. Rufus Hunt, Joe Turney, Jack Tomalin, all in this particular group. So we'll see how well they perform. I have to say, a lot of people are very impressed and very, very pleased to see the renaissance of the Swiss lady Lena Bühler, having moved across to the Evolution team. She's right up on the pace once again, within half a second of Eli Goldstein's fastest practice time from yesterday, a 55.834. So there's plenty of opportunities for her to move forward. Kamil Donic is another one of those drivers who has not done a lot of the testing because, of course, he wasn't here yesterday. Several drivers wanting to move forward from their practice performance, the likes of Rivaldo van der Westerleken, Xavier Hansem, Danny Bunshu, Kevin Stahauer, all drivers who can be right at the front end of the field. So let's see how their qualifying practice sessions go. And obviously, we've also got to keep an eye on the Thai driver who was 10th in last year's championship, Thanapong Pangsatumnu. 7th in last year's championship, of course, in this group, Jana Govaerts. So we'll see how well they go. But it is going to be a very interesting challenge for them. And they know what's at stake here. They know they've basically got to come straight out of the blocks and be fast very, very quickly. Just looking up and down the field, I didn't actually spot too many of the Nassau panels, the new ones, being used in that Senior X30 qualifying practice group. But then I was focused more on the lap charts than I was watching the karts out of the window. I tend to do that through qualifying practice sessions. It's always a little bit easier to get up to that point. So it is going to be an interesting challenge. We know that for definite, and it's very, very tough for the drivers out here to come up with a game plan that's going to keep them right at the front end of the field throughout, especially when you could put a blanket over pretty much the entirety of the field. There was not a single driver over the course of the 4 practice sessions whose fastest time was in the 57s. Everybody cracked the 56s out of the 70 drivers in this field. It's absolutely incredible how close it is. And it's very, very difficult to choose one driver over another in terms of they're definitely going to win this weekend. There's about 17 drivers, for my money, that could win the final over the course of the weekend. And that is pretty astonishing stuff when you consider how many drivers of the 70 we have got here who've got good experience, good ability, good knowledge of the circuit. There's so many factors. I reckon there's a good 17 or 18 drivers, as I said, who could win the final tomorrow. But in terms of drivers who could get on the podium, well, you have to talk about at least 40 to 50 drivers who have the ability to get on that podium. Absolutely incredible. And that's what's great about X30 Seniors in this IAME European Championship, because the quality and the talent within this field is just spectacular. I've never known it on such an incredible international level as this, where you've got such an amazing spread of talent amongst the drivers. It really is fantastic. And here, as guests of the Royal Automobile Club of Belgium at the magnificent Circuit de Fagnes, here at the International Raceway, one of the top karting circuits in this part of the world. And for those who are historians of motorsport, just a few miles down the road from a very impressive site that used to hold Formula One racing. No, not Spa. No, not Zolder. It is, of course, the Chimay Street Circuit that used to run the Grand Prix de Frontier back in the early days of motor racing. They ran it from 1929 all the way through to the 1970s. And on 2 occasions, the Grand Prix de Frontier down the road in Chimay was actually a Formula One event. And it was actually won back in 1954, the last time it ran as a Formula One event, by the Crown Prince of Thailand, Prince Bira. Yes, I am a nerd, and I'm very, very happy to prove it. The last time it actually ran the Grand Prix de Frontier on the streets of Chimay, the last 3 years it ran actually in the early 70s, was won by a great stalwart of British motorsport, who a lot of people up and down the paddock will have watched when they were kids in the 1970s, and that, of course, is the late, great David Purley, who won 3 times the Grand Prix de Frontier on the streets of Chimay. This is a wonderful part of the world for local motor racing history. There's great karting here, there's been great motor racing, and occasionally the Chimay Street Circuit does open up for classic motor racing festivals. So it's a wonderful part of the world. There's rich talent, rich blood of racing drivers here, and a lot of the top talents in Belgian motorsport have started here and have obviously gone on to amazing things, including the very talented Stoffel van Dorn, who of course now is racing in Formula One for the McLaren Formula One team as teammates to Fernando Alonso. From small acorns, mighty oaks can grow. It really is fantastic to see these drivers here from the local part of the world here in Belgium, who have put on an absolutely incredible show. And if you look through the rankings of the talented list of drivers from Belgium who are currently up there in the top end of the list, you can probably name most of them as having been race winners here on this very circuit. You've only got to look at the likes of the drivers that have made it big from this part of the world, from Mark Goossens to Laurens van Tor to Maxime Martin to Vincent Rademacher, Bas Leinders, Eric van der Poel, Anthony Kumpen. Who else can you mention on that list of drivers? The likes of Jeffrey van Hooijdonk. Probably all of them will have started their karting careers right here at this very circuit in Mariembourg. It's been absolutely amazing to watch these guys come through, and there's a real crop of talent in Senior X30 in particular from Belgium. You've only got to look at the likes of the drivers who are at the sharp end of the field, the likes of Eli Goldstein, of course, one of the favourites for this weekend. Noah Roovers is up there. Rens van Pelt, who's been strong all season long. Nicolas Bayard is going to be a strong one. Simon Henrod. And then, of course, you've got another local talent from Sebastien de Grand, Xavier Hansheim. William Godefroid should be very strong. Jana Gouvarts, who was 7th in last year's European Championship, of course. Martin Hebet, and then a few more of the Belgian contingent. Tom Nellison, Anthony Moonen, Evan Becerra, and hopefully, if he's out there, Fabio Kiltica. There's a great crop of talent in Senior X30 alone from Belgium, and it's great to see these drivers on home soil proving that they're just as quick as the leaders. Absolutely fantastic stuff in the early stages of the meeting here of the second round of the 2018 IAME X30 Euro Series. The time has started to tick down, and the drivers are leaving the holding area now for the second qualifying practice session. And I note straight away that there are a couple of drivers who have gone out with the new Nassau panel. Angus Moulsdale, the first one out on track, actually has the new Nassau panel, which has already picked up the nickname of the Baguette because of the groove up the inside that is large enough to fit an arm down the middle of it, and is only really split up by the number board, which wraps across the top of the groove. A lot of drivers saying it gives them an improvement of a tenth or so of a second per lap. It stables the kart's understeer, and it gives you a good balance through the draft in the mix of the battles. But other drivers say, I don't like it. It doesn't really feel any different. If anything, the kart is clunkier and heavier with it. So there's a big differing of opinions out there at the moment. Now, the qualifying session has begun for this second group, but I count only 7 drivers who have actually gone out of the pits. So 7 drivers have gone out. The others are all just waiting to see what sort of times these guys do. And it's very interesting. The psychological game plans in the Senior Championship are quite evident. Now, we saw them all go out of the pits together last time, but that was because one of the first drivers to get out on the circuit in the first group was a man who's not done much mileage over the course of this weekend, Clayton Ravenscroft. But clearly he's got people worried this weekend, as he has every weekend, because the second he left the pits, everybody else went out too. So it's all about psychological mind games and everybody trying to get inside each other's heads, but it's also about making sure that the tyres are well protected. I was talking to Nick de Bruyn of the PDB Racing team last night, and one of the reasons that they stay in the pits for so long during qualifying, he was telling me, was because the tyres do not last very long at all. And Piers Sexton, I was talking to him last night, he said basically 5 minutes is all you really need to get the ultimate pace out of the tyres and get the qualifying laps in. So a few of the teams not going out until the first qualifying lap is done, and now they're all flying out of the pits as the drivers are coming through to complete their first flying lap. So that's a little bit awkward. It's not particularly dangerous because everybody gets through okay, but the first qualifying laps are now in. Angus Moulsdale is fastest so far on a 56.375. Then it is Xavier Hansheim, William Godefroid, Sebastien Degrand, Kevin Stahauer, Liam Hesemans, Kilian Belair, and Thomas Imburg, who did not have a great lap that time. His last sector his first sector was not particularly quick, nor was his middle sector. So a few seconds lost there for Thomas Imburg as he just finds his feet around the circuit to a certain degree. But now with the X30 seniors out on circuit, there's going to be some really interesting battles from them as they get themselves up to speed. There's going to be a few drivers out there now trying to topple Angus Mulsdale, and I think we've still got quite a few of the drivers actually in the holding area. I don't think all of the 24 of them have actually come out. I think there's still one or two who are waiting. So they come through this time, a lot of them setting their flying laps. William Godefroid goes fastest of all now on a 56.086. That's really good from William Godefroid, considering his best performance in practice over the course of the 4 sessions. William Godefroid's best time has been, I'm just trying to figure out where he was before because he's gained a lot of time compared to where he was. He did a 56.462 in practice, so he's 0.4 of a second quicker than he has gone all weekend. A really good start from Godefroid. Mulsdale in second. Hansheim is now third. He's gained a lot of time as well. Xavier Hansheim was having a really difficult time in the practice sessions, and his fastest time across practice, Xavier Hansheim, was a 56.375, so he's already found, well, it's about the same sort of time actually, but in the early stages of this qualifying session, that's still about a third position. There's a lot of drivers out there who are now setting times. Everybody bar Fabio Chieltica is now on circuit, so I have a feeling that Chieltica is not going to be competing in this championship for this round after all, which is a real shame. Now we're getting some flying laps coming in from some of the other drivers. Godefroid still remains at the top from Mulsdale, Hansheim, Sylvester Alexejevs, Sebastien Degrand, Rivaldo van der Westerleken, Kevin Stahauer, Rashid Ghanem, Rufus Hunt and Morgan Porter. But this is only a handful of the drivers who have come through. Noah Ruvers now pops himself into the top 12. Lena Bueller's done a relatively slow first lap, but I have a feeling there's more speed to find there. And we're still waiting for the ultimate pace from the likes of Jana Guvarts, Jordan Brown-Nutley, Joe Turney, and a few others who have not yet set their really strong pace. But we're going to see a few of those drivers now get up to speed. They've got to be so careful about making sure their tyres are at their best for this part of qualifying. They really need to be on their A-game, so they'll work very hard to make sure they can get there. Across the line, another good run from Mulsdale. He doesn't improve his time, but it's still in the 56.2s. So a really good start from him to this session. And now Morgan Porter comes up to 7th place. Rashid Ghanem displaces him, the Lebanese driver, on a 56.548. I'm fairly sure that's the fastest he's gone all weekend as well. Rashid Ghanem's really struggled to find the ultimate pace he wants. So the Lebanese driver, I'm just trying to see what his times were from yesterday, but he didn't have the greatest of practice sessions from his point of view. Nicolas Pico now goes fastest, and he's broken into the 55s. So Nicolas Pico has gone faster than Eli Goldstein's qualifying time. Nicolas Pico's done a 55.973, so that's the ultimate pole position at the moment. Nicolas Pico has done a 55.9. So that will put him the ultimate fastest of all. Joe Turney's just a whisker slower than that on a 56.053, and I'm trying to figure out if that is actually quicker than was done earlier on. But that was a very, very strong performance there. Eli Goldstein did a 56.053. So that is exactly the same time as Joe Turney to the 1,000th of a second. That's amazing. So those two dead level in qualifying at the moment. Then it's William Godefroid in this group. Jordan Brown-Nutley, Mulsdale, Hansheim. Mulsdale set the fastest time in the first sector, by the way, so he could be about to move forward. Then it's Sylvester Alexejevs, Degrand, Ruvers, Imburg, Bundschuh, van der Westerleken, Stahauer, Ghanem, Porter, Guvarts, Hunt, Hesemans, Bueller, Sutumnu, Belair, Tomalin, and Donic. That is the order at the moment with 30 seconds left of the qualifying session. So a lot of these drivers are only going to get one more qualifying lap in. Some of them are already on that last lap, of course, because they've only just come across the line. So it's a bit of a split qualifying group, this. As they come across the line, here's Angus Mulsdale. He'll get one more lap in, courtesy of the fact that he started very early on in the session. He's still in 5th place. Hasn't improved on his best time, but 5th position in this group is not bad at all. But Nicolas Pico, fastest in the first sector once again, is definitely in position to grab a pole position ultimately from this group. Now that is really sensational from Nicolas Pico. He was already quite up at the far end, the Frenchman, But to give you an idea of how far he's made the jump, yesterday the French KZ2 champion of last year set a best time in practice of 56.422, and he's now found nearly half a second on practice. That is amazing from Nicolas Picot. Really good job there from the Frenchman. We run out of time to 0. And now we are just waiting for the drivers to come through and finish their qualifying laps. But an amazing run from Nicolas Picot. Whatever happens, he's in the 55, so he'll be starting at the front end. Here's Angus Morsdale across the line, the first across the line, and he remains in the top 5. So as they come through the end of this lap, we're just waiting to see how this will finish up, if there's going to be a few more changes right at the bitter end. Picot remains at the top, Turney in second. Godefroy has already pulled the cart in. Brown-Nutley fourth from Morsdale. Hansheim will remain sixth. Then it's Sylvester Alexievas, Sebastien Degrand, Noah Ruvers, Thomas Imburg up to 10th from Danny Bunshu, Rivaldo van der Westerleken, Jana Guvarts, Kevin Stahauer, Rashid Ghanem, Morgan Porter, Rufus Hunt, Liam Hezemans, Lena Bueller, Thana Pongpangsa Tumnu way down in 20th, Kilian Belair, Jack Tomalin, and Kamil Donic. So that is your order, and the time once again very, very closely matched, but there are a few drivers off the pace. Kilian Belair only got a time of a 56.9. Jack Tomalin's best was a 57.0. Kamil Donic's was a 57.5. So really difficult qualifying sessions for them, and not quite where they wanted to be on pace. We didn't see Fabio Kiltica, so clearly his last-minute entry is not going to be fulfilled, which is a real shame. I'd have liked to have seen Fabio Kiltica out there, to be fair. But Nicolas Picot has definitely made a very tough task even harder for the third practice group, because Nicolas Picot has done a 55.973. That is amazing. He's found half a second over yesterday's practice, and the Frenchman looking very stable and steady out there to put himself fastest of all. In front of Joe Turney, William Godefroy, two more of the Brits, Jordan Brown-Nutley and Angus Morsdale, and the Belgian Xavier Hansheim in the top 10, along with Sylvester Alexievas, Sebastien Degrand, Noah Ruvers, and Thomas Imburg. So that's the top 10 from qualifying practice series 2. Remaining the rest of the drivers, Danny Bunshu, who did a 56.4, so there's about 0.4 of a second separating the top 10. Rivaldo van der Westerleken was in 12th position from Jana Guvarts, Kevin Stehauer. Then we have Rashid Ghanem, Morgan Porter, Rufus Hunt, as we said, Liam Hezemans, Lena Bueller, and rounding out the top 20 is Thana Pongpangsa Tumnu. Then we have Kilian Belair, Jack Tomalin, and Kamil Donic. None of the three of those drivers really got the kind of pace we wanted to see from them, or they wanted to see from themselves. So a very interesting start to the weekend for those three drivers, and not for the right reasons. So they'll be wanting to charge their way forward. Now, comparing ultimately the qualifying sessions together, Nicolas Picot is the ultimate fastest. Joe Turney and Eli Goldstein have exactly the same lap time, 56.053. Now, I'm not entirely sure who that second place is going to go to then, because I can't quite figure out who's been fastest of all over the majority of the weekend. I guess it's got to go to Goldstein, hasn't it? Because he was fastest in practice. So I'm assuming it's going to go to him in second place, although I've been wrong before, so I don't want to put anything definite on it, but they are still very much at the sharp end. William Godefroy is going to be the next one in with a 56.0. Then I'm trying to figure out if it's Jordan Brown-Nutley or Ruben Moyer. It will be Ruben Moyer, then Joey Van Splinteren, Vincent Marceau, Clayton Ravenscroft, and then Jordan Brown-Nutley. Clayton Ravenscroft and Niels Coolen, and then Jordan Brown-Nutley, who slots in front of Siem Liedmar. So fair play to Clayton Ravenscroft. Having missed all of the practices yesterday, he is right up in the top 10 on merit. That is really impressive stuff. And nobody expected him to go pole position, but to be right up in the sharp end of the top 10, that's really, really impressive. He's done a cracking job yet again. So we are moving into qualifying practice series 3 very shortly, and that's going to be for our final group of drivers in Senior X30. Don't forget, of course, the first 28 from the qualifying heats qualify for the finals automatically. Then we have our repechage race moving into tomorrow, as well as the Comet Cup for the drivers who are not quite able to get into the repechage. The winner of that at least walks away with some pride. But there's a lot of races to come from the Senior X30s, and obviously we're going to find out which drivers are going to be best placed to take advantage of those starting positions in just a few moments' time. But there's some big names in this third and final group for qualifying in Senior X30, so it's definitely going to be a qualifying session worth hanging on to something for.
Hi, I'm Tom Ingram and you're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Jacques Villeneuve. You're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Bruno Senna. You're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Chris Hoy, and you're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Landon Norris, and you're listening to Downforce Radio.
You're listening to Race Day Live on Downforce UK, brought to you by Clapham North MOT, Motorsport Days Live, Stopwatch Hospitality, and Trade Price Cars.
So time now for the third and final Senior X30 qualifying practice series group. And it's a really, really interesting grid of drivers. 24 of them will come out and do their qualifying sessions. And a lot of these guys have what it takes to topple Nicolas Pico and Eli Goldstein at the front end of the field. This is going to be a really interesting qualifying session. We'll see some pretty spectacular stuff from them as they come out onto the racetrack. Mark Kimber, Championship leader, winner from Sal Briz, of course. Owen Byatt, Tony Harainen, Thomas Fleming, Nicolas Beart, Carlos Saval-Martin, Romain Leroux, Levi Lintucanto, Juan Carlos Hernandez Ruiz, Harry Platten, Harry Barlow, Max Pilker, Henke Waldschmidt, Sean Butcher, Gustav Brandin, Camille Pretot, Leonardo Paniotto, Felix Warga, Rens van Pelt, Eduardo Cosseteng, Manuel Godofratone, Ali Akabi, Henke Kelteren, and John Philip Springob. This is going to be a really interesting group. We've got so many talented drivers in this particular field. Mark Kimber, the man who won at Sal Briz. Owen Byatt, who's one of the toughest privateers I think I've ever seen in karting, both here and, of course, in his home country of Great Britain. Tony Harainen, a very strong competitor in his own right. Looks like he could do some very spectacular things here if he's got a good setup underneath him. We've also got some very great talent from Thomas Fleming, the British driver for BMR. Nicolas Beart, the Belgian for RSD Karting. Carlos Saval-Martin for the FA Racing team, one of the Spanish contingent in the factory team. Romain Leroux, the Frenchman for Piers Sexton Racing. Levi Lintucanto, the Evolution driver, he's from Finland. Then we have Juan Carlos Hernandez Ruiz, the Spanish driver. Harry Platten for the BMR Factory Zenon team. Harry Barlow for Thule Motorsport, fresh off the back of being runner-up in the Biralat UK Cadet Series. He's a double champion in the Cadets. Biralat UK Junior Series last year and has moved on to seniors. And just last week, Harry Barlow got his first senior podium in the Biralat UK Super Elite Championship for 125cc karts. So Harry Barlow is one who will definitely be wanting to make progress here at Mariembourg. Max Pilker, the pole for Unique Racing. He's going to be one to watch now. Having had his first practice session of the weekend, he'll want to charge forward in similar style to some of the other drivers who missed out on practice but have already got themselves a very strong platform to play with this weekend. Henke Waldschmidt, the former tester for the Toyota Formula 1 team. Henke Waldschmidt's definitely going to be one to watch this weekend. He's right up at the sharp end in terms of his one-lap pace. He was fifth fastest of all in practice, so the Dutchman definitely with a good chance to make something happen. The Australian, Sean Butcher, who is based these days in London, England, and having a great run with the Mick Barrett Racing team this year. Gustav Brandin for PDB, the Swedish driver. He'll be one to keep an eye on. The Kart Republic France driver, Camille Pretot. Leonardo Paniotto, one of the several Brits in the BMR squad. Felix Warga for the Belgian 3G Racing team. Rens van Pelt, the man who's been very strong and at the front end of the field, both at the Valencia Winter Cup and at Sal Briz. He'll be one to keep an eye on for the Euro karting team on home soil. Piers Sexton Racing's Eduardo Cosseteng, the Spaniard Manuel Godofratone, the Jordanian racer for Dan Holland Racing, who's been very strong in practice. Ali Akabi was right up towards the top 10. Not bad considering this is his first weekend in the European Series for this season. And then we have Henke Kelteren, one of the Dutch privateers, very strong talent he is as well. And then, of course, the newest driver from the HTP kart team for the 2018 season, the German talent, Jan Philipp Springob, who is off the back of winning the national German X30 championship last year. So he's definitely one to keep an eye on. Although this is not his home course, he knows it well. He's raced here before. So Jan Philipp Springob will want to do a good job here at Mariembourg. Just a few minutes to go then before that qualifying practice series group goes out onto the circuit, and that will be the last qualifying session of the weekend. It will be the last non-race session of the entire weekend, bar the warm-ups before we start race action tomorrow. You have to do a 5-minute warm-up just to make sure that everything is tickety-boo. especially if there's been any setup changes or adjustments or whatever. So the drivers will be getting themselves into position out on the circuit. They're in their positions in the holding area as well. The temperatures increasing once again here, and that's definitely going to play into the hands of the drivers who can cope better with the conditions. I've had to whack the air conditioning right on full in my commentary box just to stop myself from melting, Wizard of Oz style. It's a really, really tough commentary position this as well, because we can see over the first part of the circuit. I need to remove this blind in front of the window because a lot of commentators sit down. I stand, so we're going to need to change that before we get into the race action itself. It's not so bad for qualifying, but for races, we definitely need to come up with a plan B. So the drivers just getting themselves into position. Some of them are sat in the karts all ready to go. Others are waiting till the last possible minute to sit down in the karts. And the question is, how many of the minutes of this particular qualifying session will be relevant? We had several practice sessions yesterday where there were 7 minutes in length and only 5 minutes of them were actually used by any of the drivers, particularly in qualifying yesterday. That happened in the juniors. In the X30 minis and the super shifters, they tend to come out for an awfully long time in the qualifying session. And really exciting to see the drivers come out for the 2 Senior X30 sessions, reminding you, of course, that so far the fastest driver from qualifying is Nicolas Picot. So Nicolas Picot is the fastest of them all at the moment, having done that fantastic time of a 55.973. Really, really strong performance there from Nicolas Picot. And I have a feeling there's going to be a lot more to come from him if he continues to push like crazy. Now, can anybody get further up than a 55.9. Fastest lap of the weekend was Eli Goldstein, who is, I think, going to be second from the qualifying session if things stay as they are. But the ultimate fastest lap of the weekend was a 55.834 in yesterday's practice session. Actually, no, I think it was this morning's practice session that Eli Goldstein set that on a 55.834. I will double check, but I'm fairly sure that was set this morning by Eli Goldstein. This morning he actually set a 55.914, which actually, looking at qualifying, I think would have been good enough to get pole position anyway. Yes, it was. So the 2 fastest laps of this weekend have both been done by Eli Goldstein, but in qualifying, Nicolas Picot has been the fastest on a 55.973. We are under 60 seconds away from that 3rd qualifying practice series now. And as they come out of the pits this time, it is going to be a really interesting battle. Now, I would imagine that Mark Kimber and Owen Byatt, the 2 drivers who did not do a lot of practice from this group, are probably going to come out quite early to get as much track time as they possibly can. But that obviously upsets the balance of the tyres, because the tyres, as a lot of the teams have been telling me, only work for a handful of laps. So you've got to be very careful how that works out. So we'll wait for the timer to start ticking down for the 7 minutes of qualifying here in the 3rd and final group. At this point, it is Nicolas Picot who will start from pole position, but will he remain there? Well, the time has started to tick down, so we are a green flag, and it's a question now as to who is going out. At the moment, the answer is nobody. They're all waiting once again. So the psychological mind games continuing on at this moment in time. So Mark Kimber, Owen Byatt, Tony Harainen, Thomas Fleming, Nicolas Bayart, Carlos Saval Martin, Roman Leroux, Levi Lintucanto, Juan Carlos Hernandez Ruiz, Harry Platten, Harry Barlow, Max Pilker, Henke Waldschmidt, Sean Butcher, Gustav Brandin, Camille Pruteau, Leonardo Paniautu, Felix Varga, Renz Van Pelt, Eduardo Cosseteng, Manuel Godofrotone, Ali Akabi, Henke Kalteren, and Jan Philipp Springob. That is your list of drivers, and in the time it took me to say all of that, nobody has yet left the pits. I genuinely thought if I started rabbiting about the list of participants, someone would leave the pits by now, but they haven't. So this is in effect a 6-minute qualifying session, because the first minute has ticked down and nobody has yet left the pits. This is effectively a game of chicken, as who leaves the pits first and who sets the precedent for everybody else to come out. They wait to see who gets out first. It is absolute mind games, and a lot of people are very frustrated by it, but everybody plays it. So everybody plays the game, so you have to keep playing the same game. So everybody out there just waiting for that optimum moment. Of course, there is also the argument of tyre life. You have to make sure that the tyres are not wasted out there, and the fewer laps possible they can do to get the ultimate pace. Here we go. We've got our first one coming out onto the pits, and then look, everybody else just follows out in pursuit. So the first one who decides to blink is the local man, Renz Van Pelt. So obviously his local knowledge will definitely come into play here. We'll see how he goes. But it's fascinating to see all the spectators in the stands are pretty much Senior X30 mechanics and drivers as they watch the third and final practice session to see who goes top. With our digiboard out here on the start-finish straight by the podium, this is going to be really interesting to see how the drivers progress in the early phase of qualifying. Now a few more have left the pits, and now all of them are pouring out. So there you go. The psychological game plan wasted about 2 minutes of qualifying, roughly, and now they are coming out onto the circuit for qualifying. So let's see how the drivers do, as the battle for positions are going to be decided by these 7 minutes of qualifying. 2 groups have already been. The fastest of all is Nicolas Pico on a 55.9. Can that be beaten? It's going to be very tough. There's a lot of drivers in this field who could do it. Eli Goldstein watching at the first part of the course as well, I noticed there, just going to the first corner to see if anybody's going to get a better run through the first sector than him. Goldstein's very quick through that first sector, so we'll see what sort of pace these guys are doing. Fastest in the first sector at the moment is the Dutchman, Henke Kalteren, who's done a 10.7. Camille Prutot goes faster at 10.6. So not bad for the first sector. Our first flying laps are through, though. It's Rens van Pelt ahead of Henke Kalteren, Camille Prutot. Levi Lintekantu now goes third, ahead of Felix Varga. Up to fourth comes Butcher. Hirainen's now fifth. Fleming now sixth. Then Varga, Plauten, Prutot, and Kosseteng in the top 10. Nicolas Bayart has just come up into that top 10 position. But Rens van Pelt is now the fastest in the second sector. This is going to be an interesting one. How are these guys going to go? They fly out to the far side. Let's see who's going to be fast out of the final sector. Here comes Rens van Pelt over the line. What's he going to get for his first major flying lap of the session? A 56.6. Not bad, but there's still plenty of time to find, and he knows it. Already a faster time coming from Camille Prutot. Fastest of all in the third sector. Does a 56.4. So that's the new benchmark for this group. Lots of drivers running around together in the mid-pack. They've all waited to make their ultimate lunge for pole position. A few of them came out at once, then all of them scramping around. Henke Waldschmidt does a 56.476. That's 0.005 of a second slower than Prutot. Butcher goes fastest of all on a 56.3. So Sean Butcher, the Australian, fastest of all in the second and third sectors. He goes fastest on a 56.3. Then it's Harry Platten in second place. Camille Prutot is third from Waldschmidt, Warga, Lintukantu, Ackerby, Hirainen, Van Pelt, and Owen Bayat. So really exciting start to proceedings. What can Mark Kimber do? At the moment, he's 13th on a 57.055, but he can go faster than that. Van Pelt comes back to second on a 56.386. So Sean Butcher just a whisker over that on a 56.321, but this is going to be a really interesting battle for the final qualifying practice series of the Senior X30s. This is going to be a really interesting tussle, and it will continue on over the last 2 minutes of the session. Across the line again comes the 303 of Henke Waldschmidt, who goes second on a 56.328. That's 0.007 of a second back from the new man on top, Sean Butcher, who goes faster still, 56.158. So Butcher's got a 56.1, Platten's got a 56.228. Great work from Butcher and Platten. They've really found a good pace and good rhythm in this qualifying session thus far. The top 10 looks like this. It's Butcher from Platten, Waldschmidt, Ackerby now fourth, Hirainen is fifth from Van Pelt, Prutot, Varga, Bayat, and Lintukanto. Over the line comes Rens van Pelt. He does not improve in position. He does a 56.376, which is his personal best, but it's not good enough to move him up from 6th place. In 11th place is Nicolas Bayart. Then it's Jan-Philippe Springhob, Henke Kalteren, Thomas Fleming, Roman Leroux, Manuel Godofratone. Mark Kimber's down in 17th place. Juan Carlos Hernandez Ruiz is 18th. Kosseteng, Saval Martin, Brandon, Barlow, Panayotou. So they come across the line for another lap. A personal best from Henke Waldschmidt, but he remains in third. Varga's up to 6th. Butcher goes faster still on a 56.059. Now, a 56.059 is, I believe, just 0.006 of a second slower than the time set by Goldstein and Turney. So they both set the same time, but Butcher is only 0.006 of a second off that with a couple of laps left in him. Henke Waldschmidt's just set the personal best fastest first sector of all, 10.5 seconds, as across the line comes the 3.74 once again of Henke Kalteren. He's just outside the top 10 with a 56.709. But we're running out of opportunities now. Drivers need to get their really fastest laps in now. because this is going to be their last chance, and not everybody is going to get another lap in because they've waited a long time to come out, and so they've compromised their chances of getting another lap in. Waldschmidt goes second on a 56.210, but still 0.151 back from Butcher, who completes another lap. He's got one more lap to go, and now the checkered flag comes out. It comes out in time to receive Romain Leroux. So Mark Kimber's got up into the top 10, right at the death there. Mark Kimber finishes his laps and does a top 10 lap. That is 56.477, but he's still vulnerable to a lot of other drivers who can beat him. So Kimber is fastest of all of the drivers who have now finished their session. Kimber, Savard-Martin, Bayat, Kosseteng, Leroux, Bayat, Hernandez Ruiz and Panayotou have all crossed the line, but there are still drivers out there pounding around getting lap times in. Renzo van Pelt up to 4th place with a last lap of 56.246, but I think Sean Butcher is going to remain fastest of all unless there is one final swing. I think Sean Butcher has stopped his run, so he's not going to get a faster lap in whatever happens. He was slower in the first and second sectors. What about Waldschmidt? What can he do? It's not enough. 56.210 remains his best. Is there going to be one final roll of the dice? Sean Butcher comes through on a 57, so that's a second off his best. Personal best, fastest of all in the third sector from Carlos Savard-Martin, did a 19.309, but it is Sean Butcher who gets the fastest time from the third qualifying group, and it is a 56.059. That is 6 thousandths of a second slower than Goldstein and Turney managed. So it looks like to me that the top 4 is going to look like this. Pole position will be Nicolau Pico. Second will be Eli Goldstein. Third will be Joe Turney. And fourth will be Sean Butcher. What an incredible start to the Senior X30 weekend from the qualifying sessions here. Really exciting stuff and great battles throughout. In this qualifying series practice, it is Sean Butcher who goes fastest of all from Henke Waldschmidt and Harry Platten. Rens van Pelt was 4th. The Jordanian Ali Akabi, a brilliant job in 5th place from Tony Harainen. Felix Warga in 7th place from Camille Proteau. Levi Luntakantu and Mark Kimber rounding out the top 10. Then it's Carlos Savard-Martin, Owen Bayat, Eduardo Kosseteng, Thomas Fleming, Romain Leroux, Nicolas Bayart, Henke Kalteren, Jan-Philipp Springhob, Jon Carlos Hernandez Ruiz, and Harry Barlow. And then finally we'll have Manel Godofretone, Gustav Brandin, and Leonardo Panayotou. And Max Pilker did not set a time. So I'm guessing that just like Kwiatek earlier on, Max Pilker will not be competing after all. So that is the Senior X30 sessions wrapped up to a close. There will be no more qualifying for the rest of the weekend, folks. You've endured it all, and now the racing can happen in a little under an hour's time. The first race of the weekend will start at 12 o'clock local time, and it's going to be absolutely incredible from here on in. So you'll join us live on Telemundi Media, wherever you are around the world. Downforce UK listeners can listen to it live as it happens, of course, via their Spreaker application on their smartphone or on the website, downforceracing.uk. So it's going to be a really interesting battle ahead of us, and we've got great racing to come. 33 races in all this weekend, 22 of them today, 11 tomorrow, and we'll decide who's going to be the victors in the second round of the 2018 IAME X30 European Series for X30 Mini, Junior, Senior and Super Shifter. From Jake Sanson reporting here from Mariembourg, we're going to be back on air for both Downforce UK and Telemundi Media at about 12 o'clock local time here in Belgium. It's going to be a great weekend.
Hi, I'm Tom Ingham and you're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Jacques Villeneuve. You're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Bruno Senna. You're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Chris Hoy, and you're listening to Downforce Radio.
Hi, I'm Landon Norris, and you're listening to Downforce Radio.